Hello and welcome to another League of Legends video, and in this one we shall be talking about how to best set up your champion pool to carry, win and climb in Season 11. While this is directed at all roles, it will have a jungle focus with the examples and for my delivery, but if you play another role, don't worry, I've kept things very general in the first half, and the second half you can break down and apply to whatever champion pool for whatever role you might want. And for the baseline, obviously we are going to use the best at the game, the challenger high elo players. We will discuss how they do it, why they do it, and then in turn how you can develop your own champion pool in a similar way to ensure you have the best success set up for Season 11. So as always, please consider leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing if you enjoy the content and are looking forward to more. Don't forget to join me on Planet 9 for tournaments, coaching, other shenanigans, and more. And now without hesitation, let's begin. And I don't think it comes as a surprise that almost all challengers first get there and still get there by spamming champions, usually around 3 for at least 75% of their games. And usually they do it with one role. Sometimes you have people doing 2 roles, sometimes fill, but those are your real outliers, the really skilled players. They have a main champion, a second main, as well as an alternative. And this can vary drastically on your style. Some enjoy throwing axes at faces and watching the deconstruction of atoms right in front of them, so they play Olaf. And their second and third champions might be ones that are very similar in style, or otherwise be very different in style. My personal preference has always been having different kinds of champions. Over time, I've developed my champion pool, we'll talk about that later on in the video as well, where I really have a core main within each class of jungler. But obviously in high elo, once you hit Master Plus, even D2 Plus, you will see these impacts. The changes of champion pool with meta is one of the most important skill sets you can have. And this is what differentiates us solo queue tryhards from the pro players, at least most pro players. They have to adapt to the metas, the patches, and make sure they are picking whatever will give their team the best chance of success in their leagues. Or in G2's case, keep signing the best players and enjoy casually relaxing to first place. Now, multi-season challenges normally sit at around 50% of their games on 3 champions. This is just an indication, not a definitive statistic, and this is because there is a higher priority on the meta picks at the very peak of the ladder. Player strength is closer, and therefore champion strength makes a much bigger difference. This means you have less choices in your jungle pool. Now, I understand most of us are playing against Noobmaster69, but just because he picks a counterpick to you doesn't mean he has a skill set necessary to defeat you. And this is very important when you are playing these games. It's highly unlikely that said player, Noobmaster69, has a skill set necessary to obliterate you with the Taliyah jungle. But if a challenger player locks in Taliyah, well now you better hope your champion pool has something that can match up or at least help you navigate the game. Especially if it's Corey on the other team, because instead of throwing rocks, he just throws Malphites. Now, what is a good size for our champion pool? 3 seems to be the sweet spot for most players. We do enjoy our sugar, but there are some one tricks as well, and they normally have a main, they just don't need to rely on it to climb. I mean, many pro players are known for one champion that they use in solo queue to initially rise the ranks. But how does this apply to you? The people. Let's break it down in a very simple way. Why is it important to have a champion pool, and how does it help you climb? Ultimately, there's less to learn. Think of it in a very cliche sense. Go into the practice tool, practice every single Riven combo 1 time. How do you feel? Confident? Can you go into ranked with it? I really hope not, but that would explain the 1 and 9 Riven I had in my placements. But what if you practice 2 or 3 combos 50 times, 100 times? If you have those that you can rely on, put that into your muscle memory. When you get into games that require quick reflexes, or perhaps something that can get you out of a situation, a close trade, those combos will come in very handy. That means you will have quicker results in your wins and your LP gains. Translate that to champions, and specifically the jungle matchups. Spamming the same jungler multiple times in a row, not only does that help your matchup knowledge against all the other junglers, it means you can get a good idea of how enemy junglers clear relevant to your champion, how you match up in 1v1s, who you can gank faster than, who you can farm faster than. It's the only way to truly know a jungler, because once you have that matchup knowledge, that database built up in your mind, it will open up the doors of your early game jungling that you didn't think exist. Because all of a sudden you're thinking, right, now I'm against the Fiddlesticks, what is my clear game plan going to be? Right, now I'm against a Rek'Sai, how am I going to shift it? Because you have all of this experience with one champion versus every other champion. The downside to this, and why champion pools of this nature can be difficult for some players, is because you get bored. Maybe it's less fun because you like playing a multitude of junglers and you just enjoy trying different things every game. And on the other hand, if you spam Lee Sin and suddenly you lose 5 in a row, now you're tilted, you're frustrated, and you don't know where to turn next other than your mother's shoulder. However, you have to decide to yourself, do I want to climb or do I want to have more fun? And that being said, if you enjoy climbing and winning, well, you know, then that's also fun too, so make a decision. But just note, the first time you're trying to get Challenger, specifically for Diamond players this, but also if you're trying to get Diamond, maybe get to Gold, maybe get to Plat, you're likely going to be against players who have been there for a while and playing longer. That's why Diamond is really tough. If you get to D2 for the first time, pat yourself on the back, well done, you've entered the top 0.4%, but staying there and then getting to Master Tier is a completely different ballgame. You're playing against players that might have thousands of games of experience, games played, knowledge of matchups. Maybe their personal champion pool is super refined, giga experienced, maybe they have a better read on the meta than you do, and all of a sudden you go down again. Having a core champion pool at this stage that hopefully includes something that's meta. Seriously, you guys know me for playing Ornn and Zyra jungle, and even Volibear is kinda off meta at this point in high elo. You know LS does the same kind of stuff. Does it look like we are enjoying ourselves with our suboptimal time bomb picks? That's because we enjoy a different challenge when you try to climb. If you enjoy the mini game within the game itself, that's fine. But if your sole goal is getting to high elo, getting noticed, starting a stream, or simply trying to reach your personal best, have a core champion pool, include some meta champions, practice that one kick 10,000 times instead of one kick 10,000 times. I hate to keep using Bruce Lee Sin, but I mean, it's just such a good quotation for this, and really you need to focus on it. However, in terms of free time, yeah, I understand this. People at the top of the ladder, people in your platinum games even who just enjoy playing it and maybe are students, they have thousands of games of League, and then you've got Tyler with 10,000 games of League in the last month. But the rest of us, if I can repeat myself from last year, have jobs, wives, schools, husbands, boyfriends, cats, an iguana habitat that can't stop watching, pet rodents, stuffed animals, live action Lord of the Ring plays that you conduct in the park every second Sunday. And therefore, it's more important to have deliberate practice, which you can only do if you have a core champion pool and you're not playing the limited games you have a week on random stuff that, doesn't really help you climb whatsoever. It's a waste of your time. You're not having deliberate practice. You might as well just play some normals or Clash or even Flex Queue, because apparently that's what you do there as well. And the last thing before we get into how you construct your own champion pool, most other people do it. Most people have a main, have a backup, and have a third option, which means they get really, really good at those. And if they're super hard stocks, it doesn't really matter. You are the fresh face showing up on Gold 4, but they've been playing 1000 games of Gold 4s and they know how to match up against you with their champions. Obviously, this is exacerbated in things like Master Plus, D2, as well as D4, and yes, those are all separate elos, but it does impact the rest of your ranks just as much. If you have spread all your time amongst all those different champions, then you're okay at all of them. However, if they have a focused 3 to 5 champion pool and are great at those champions where you're just okay, your game knowledge that might be better than theirs won't really make a difference if you're losing 1v1 in the Scuttle Crab area, if you don't know how their clears work, if you don't know how you need to match up against them, if you don't know how to trade versus them, use your roam potential, etc. I mean, the game is competitive. This is what others do and you have to do it to keep up. So, our champion pool. How do we craft? How do we mold? How do we shape, chisel, refine, and shine your beautiful champion pool that will get you to your goals in Season 11? Maybe it's Challenger, maybe it's Master Tier, maybe it's Diamond, maybe it's simply just getting to Gold because you want the beautiful Victoria skin that hopefully doesn't look like Aatrox again. You have to first determine what kind of champion player are you. Do you like to one-trick and spam until hell freezes over? Do you perhaps like playing meta junglers like Graves, Hecarim, and Kha'Zix? Maybe you like collecting stamps because at this point if I see another one of those champions in my games, I'm gonna absolutely lose my mind. And ultimately you need to pick your main role. For this video, of course, we will use jungle as our focus. One-tricking means to play one champ and you flex it into any role that you play it, which is actually kind of useful. Meta means you play whatever is on the tier lists, the best junglers tier lists that show up every month, as well as on a really nice infographic on the Patreon page, hint hint. But this will change more, of course. Every time Riot does balance changes and the meta shifts, you have to pick up and adapt to a new champion. However, there is a positive to that we'll get to in a second, and there are pros and cons of each. Obviously, understanding what your main role is and your second role, these are vital. For junglers, always mid and support were the logical go-tos, the same kind of roaming impact that you have. I always recommend if you're a jungler and you're looking to play something else, learn a bit more about the game, which you should play lane to do so. Those are the roles you can pick, although there's not a lot of crossover in champion pools. At least if you're a one trick, you don't really care about that. That's a shout out to all the Sion jungle mains who keep commenting despite the fact he only has a very low pick rate. I understand, you can take him jungle, he's solid. You can also take him anywhere else. So what are the pros and cons of each? Firstly, building your champion pool, you must pick what you enjoy. You must find a champion either thematically or gameplay wise that resonates with your sense of self. And I know that's a deep question to ask a lot of you, but I'm not saying to meditate for 5 to 7 days while starving yourself. Just try and mesh in what you enjoy playing that you have sampled so far versus what you are good at. And for a detailed breakdown on how to pick the best class for your playstyle, that's a whole separate video and I've already made it, so I will link it in the description below. But then after that, you have to decide what your playstyle is, and from the jungle perspective, do you like scaling? Do you like being an early game jungler? Do you like farming, heavy ganking, objective focus, win condition primed, peel, engage? Do you enjoy being a mega cheeser like Twitch Jungle or Shaco? Watch that video, watch this video, decide on the playstyle you like, and ultimately I can say make your choice and I can tell you what to play, but that will depend on how you're going to go about it. If you choose to say become a one-trick, you need to pick a jungler that not only is good at snowballing, that can match up well to every other jungler in the game, that has carry potential, and you can get better at one of those champions that just does really well the more games you put in. A quintessential example of that is Rengar. He is not a casual choice. You play this because of his unique ability to control the map, snowball heavily, and basically frighten every squishy champion in the game. It also has the alternative benefit of being excellent in your off-roll, which with his case should be top lane. Unless you're in Korea, then jungle's the off-roll technically. And becoming an alpha predator one-trick in the jungle that you can then flex into the top lane, all of a sudden you'll be one of the most accomplished Rengar players in the game and should have no problem smurfing, climbing, and getting to at least Grandmaster Challenger. However, if you want to choose something more meta, then you need to look at something like your best junglers. You go to a stat site, have a look and see which junglers are performing the best. You say, right, you know what? I enjoy early ganking, I enjoy early pressure, quick clears, impacting lanes, tilting enemies, and on a personal level, I'm a fan of giant arachnids. Well then, you pick Elise. This will be the main champion you spam, but if she's picked or banned, or maybe even there's a matchup you just don't really like with a champion, you need a secondary choice that you can fall back to. What has a similar playstyle to Elise, an analog if you will? Well, it's pretty easy. The AD version of Elise is almost always going to be Rek'Sai. But what if, maybe Rek'Sai is picked, Elise is banned, and now you need a third choice? What matches this level of pressure and the ability to exert your will on the map in the early to mid game? Well, that's pretty easy. Currently, we have one champion just like it. Pantheon. He scales much better than he did, he's got a global ultimate, and his wonderful shiny thighs can pretty much clap anyone on the map in the jungle matchup and in lane. However, those all are very similar styles. Some people prefer to pick something and then have different styles, myself as an example. That has come from many years of playing the game, of choosing champion pools and spamming champions over and over again. Now you basically build up this wealth of knowledge, this database, and you can afford to slap whichever of those junglers you've spammed in the past into your top 3 rotation whenever you like. And that's the beauty of this system. Over the seasons and the metas that you play, your champion pool becomes very, very strong, more experience is gained out of it, and now you can continually slot in champions that you've already learned whenever the meta dictates it. That means you could have Elise as something like your first choice, but for your second option, you kind of want something that's a bit more peel orientated, but also revolves around ganking. Let's go with Nunu. And maybe as your final choice, you want something that is kind of strong in the mid game as well, in the early game, nothing that scales too much because it doesn't suit your playstyle, but allows you to have an AD component. Well, maybe we throw in a Lee Sin. And this sort of thought process is what you all have to do to refine your champion pool initially, and the more often you do that around the meta, the champions that are strong, the better you will become as a player and the more chance of success you will have while climbing. Because all of that which I just said is a transfer of skills. You're picking champions that are similar, that we can learn to use things in a different way, but still suit our playstyle. It's very common to see players who do Elise, Lee Sin, and Rek'Sai be in the same pool. It's very common for Rengar players and Kha'Zix players to enjoy playing each other's champions, even if it's secretly, because And just like you might see a Nunu main swap to Ivern when he's strong, because if Nunu's banned and Ivern's available, you can accomplish a similar peel fantasy. And if you prefer late game jungling, farming, playing around ultimates, we might throw in the Fiddlesticks, Karthus, and Evelynn, all of which are meta, all of which are strong. However, you can also main them extensively regardless of what the meta actually is. They're also all AP, so it gives you a lot of diversity in terms of how you want to play the game with a very similar thread amongst all three. And then if magically Karthus gets giga nerfed once again, you can slap in another champion to replace him that fulfills the same kind of endgame goal, maybe even a Talia who's slightly different, a bit more proactive early, but that can be good for your jungling to learn. If you're going to go my way of a jungle champion pool and you like to have different kinds of junglers within each slot, that is a much more different game. You have to be very objective about how you actually play jungling. And the objective pun wasn't really intended, but happy accidents. For example, I will have Rek'Sai in my pool, I will have Ornn as my tank, and then I'd throw in Zyra as my AP choice, or Evelynn if I was feeling whimsically tryhard. That's not a good champion pool, that's off meta, it has its struggles. I will do a video specifically on the problems with off meta junglers to address this, but because this video was focused on champion pools to climb and actually win, I didn't really feel like I should throw too much time in it. I know it was jungle focused, but hopefully if you played another role, you can see how we go through this process and you can apply it to your role as you wish. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. Let's try and blow this one up. Stay tuned for the ultimate early game jungling guide I'm remaking hopefully very soon. Don't forget to subscribe for all the future content as well as the gameplay channel. Keep your beards trimmed and fresh, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.